Can I just, well, I cannot resist just to ask you one question which relates to your last intervention. And to what extent do you see, because one of the main issues now facing China domestically has to do with the correction of environmental imbalances. And there is, of course, speculation that to adjust a system which has produced this kind of impact, you need a lot of capital, and you need a lot of investment in sewage systems, in water distribution systems. And to what extent do you think this will compete with the ability of China to keep on transferring externally resources to finance projects abroad? So to what extent to meet China's development needs while on the lines of the harmonious society strategy will conflict with this ability of China to keep on financing externally this project? And a final question relates to the yuan policy. To what extent do you think that if the domestic inflationary pressures keep on growing, and this is probably one of the main concerns of China in the last 2 years, this yuan policy will be sustainable?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for addressing these two questions. To me, we are very short of time, and lunch is immediately just ahead of us, so I'll be very brief. 30 years ago, again, Deng Xiaoping said, development is the hard truth. Now, he was right. Development is the hard truth. I mentioned on several occasions, if Deng Xiaoping were still alive, what would be his teaching to the Chinese people? With all respect, I would say, Deng Xiaoping today would say, green development is the hard truth. Because 30 years ago, China almost had nothing. Therefore, in the heat of pursuing development, we made some mistakes. We did not care that much about environmental protection. At that time, CO2 emission was not considered as a problem. Even today, China, on a per capita basis, only uses as much crude oil as 1/13 as that of the United States. 1/13, can you believe that? 1/13 on a per capita basis, while the United States is condemning China for using too much. But I always say, can you imagine if China uses as much oil on a per capita basis as the United States does? No way, because we will use more oil than the whole world can supply. Therefore, we are faced with this imperative of making a paradigm change. We cannot afford to go on the old way. That is the development, GDP growth, GDP to growth. We need to have a green development as the hard truth, as the smart truth, as the soft truth. So how can we make that leap of faith? I do not know. We are still experimenting with that. But we need to do that. So therefore, remember this from me. Green development will be the hard truth, the soft truth, and the smart truth for the Chinese nation. But we also need to learn from countries like Brazil, many African countries, etc. Now, on the renminbi exchange rate, let me tell you one story. I joined Morgan Stanley as a banker in 1994. One of the first things I did was to write an in-house research report about the Chinese renminbi yuan. Because in 1994, if you can still remember, Chinese renminbi yuan decreased from about $1 to 4 renminbi yuan, all the way to about $1 to 8.3 renminbi yuan. And it remained pegged to the dollars for about 11 years, all the way to 2005. So you can see that renminbi was very much stable. China and the Chinese government actually put a premium on stability. They thought currency should be stable rather than kind of keep changing. They are not very comfortable with an ever-changing currency. That's, deep-rooted. But I would say that before Chinese renminbi yuan will become a reserve currency in the world, China is already signing up major mutual agreements with countries like Argentina, for example, Malaysia, etc., Russia, etc., on what we call currency swap. Currency swap. That is to use the currencies of the two trading nations to settle the trading volume between themselves, rather than having to convert the trade into US dollars and then back into their currency, mainly because using dollars in too much of a volume may have inherent risks, because we do not know what the Fed will do. We do not know what will be the value of the US dollar going forward. It's depreciating. It is kind of under a lot of inflationary pressure as far as China is concerned. Therefore, I would say several things about the renminbi yuan. One is that in the shorter term, the currency swap, as we call, between renminbi yuan with the currency of its main trade partner will increase, definitely. Secondly, China is setting up more what we call settlement centers in Hong Kong, for example, in Taiwan, in Singapore, etc., where those countries and regions can actually use renminbi to settle, directly to settle. Between mainland China and Taiwan, for example, renminbi is being used increasingly. Thirdly, I would say China will increasingly build up its financial muscle. As we say it, China actually has the largest foreign currency reserve in the world, and it's increasing. And all indications are, even though China is facing with lots of challenges, you see a flood, you see mudslide, which killed about 1,000 people, lots of challenges, but the overall economic situation is very sound. China is emerging out of the financial crisis the least hurt among all the major economies in the world. People now on Wall Street are talking about, only in a matter of 9 years, maximum 15 years, that the Chinese economy as a whole will be larger than that of the United States. Further, China will produce about 600 million tons of iron and steel this year. And ever since 1996, China has been the largest producer of iron and steel in the world. If you look at the world history, ever since Industrial Revolution, there have been only a couple of countries which took that spot. The UK for many years, Germany for a few years, Japan for a few years, and the United States for a few years. And now China has been in that position. China's total iron and steel production is larger than the next 5 or 6 iron and steel producers combined together. That has a lot of significances. Therefore, I would say between China and Brazil, my firm belief is that if China maintains a stable economic development for the decades to come, and countries like Brazil, because you have so much good endowment in natural resources, in the capabilities of the people, in the smartness of the people, we can definitely be very good and mutually beneficial trading partners. That is the future. We are not competitors in the derogative sense of the word. We can be partners for mutual and constructive purposes. That's my firm belief. Thank you.